Let's talk about 4% rule and 5% rule. So, when I think about financial freedom, I'm thinking about passive income by rentals, by real estate, where the check is coming in every month. It pays my mortgage off, it pays the other expenses.
I've been having a lot of conversations around AI and how much it's coming into businesses and changing the workforce. And the reality is, machines are getting better at being machines. And if your work is very similar to the work a machine does, that's bad news bears. So, as machines get better at being machines, humans need to get better at being human. We need to come back from mini retirements refreshed, creative, imaginative, with gumption, with motivation.
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Bigger Life Podcast, where we dive into mind of entrepreneurs and real estate professionals. Today, we bring you another awesome guest who's gonna help you with the progressive mindset. Jillian is based out of Montana. She's a financial independence expert, speaker, and coach who teaches people to how to design a freedom-based lifestyle where you can take mini retirements. Hey, Jillian, how are you doing today?
Good, good. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. You are a progress coach. What does that mean? I've never met a progress coach.
I didn't have a great name for it. So I work in a unique space in that I really look at how different disciplines are tied together. So there, you have financial planners that'll run complex financial plans for you, and I'm very knowledgeable in that. But I have a lot of people who are thinking about career transitions. And maybe they've been very successful in their first career. I call it like the first chapter career. But in the second chapter, they want to optimize for different things. So maybe the first career they optimize for, I'm going to make as much money as possible. I'm going to pay down my debt. I'm going to start investing, all that good stuff. The second career, I most of my clients want to optimize for more meaning in their work, more purpose, doing projects that are interesting, better work-life balance, having space for these other goals versus like I just have to make the absolute most money possible. Um, but also in that intersection is people want to take mini retirements. They're burned out. They've been working really hard for 15, 20, 25 years and they're ready for a break. And then that fourth component is really looking at their values, their lifestyle. And so I take these four things, like how do we think through the financial plans and maybe a career transition and maybe a career break? And how do we line up your life essentially for people who've built some financial freedom? How do we leverage that to actually make their lives better versus it being hypothetical freedom, but perhaps they feel incredibly trapped in the life they've built?
This is good, right? So you talked about hypothetical freedom
Yeah.
and financial freedom. So
Mhm.
can you break that down for me?
I've written in the fire space for a decade now almost, and it's a unique subset of people. I became financially independent when I was 32, and I'm 42 now. But it's the only group of people I know that all have a client come in with a million, 2 million, $4 million and say, "I hate my job. I really need a break. I really want to do something else, but I don't have enough money." And I'm like, "Oh, sweetheart, you have $2 million." And they're like, "Yeah, but it doesn't hit that 4% rule yet. Like it's not enough to sustain me for forever." And it's a group of people that has hypothetically a tremendous amount of financial freedom. And then they ask their money, "Hey, can I switch jobs? Can I take a few months off?" And their money goes, "No, no, you can't. Actually, you have no options. We have all this money, but you can't make any changes in your life." And that's a really unique thing. You give the average person $1 million and they're like, "Yeah, I'm changing jobs." Like I'm definitely taking a break. But in the fire community, this 4%, this 5% rule, money becomes the master. It becomes the taskmaster that orders us around versus something that is used to better build a more interesting value-based life. In the book that I wrote, I talk about kind of like an in-between bucket and an old age bucket. And I think that mentality shift of how we organize our money so that our money like gives us permission to do the things that we want to do. I always encourage people, what was the intention in which you saved this money?
Let's talk about 4% rule and 5% rule. So when I think about financial freedom, I'm thinking about passive income by rentals, by real estate, where the check is coming in every month. It pays my mortgage off, it pays the other expenses, and what's left over is the cash flow. And if I can have enough cash flow that can sustain with my daily expenses, that's when I got financial freedom. But with your 4% rule, things seems like things are slightly different. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so the 4% rule or 5% rule is essentially how much can we draw down on our investments every year and not run out of money? Because that's an important thing. You don't want to be broke when you're 80. And so Bill Bergen's run a bunch of calculations. And initially in the 90s, he said you could safely withdraw. Your safe withdrawal rate was about 4%. And then he actually just came out with a new book a few months ago, and he's rerun the calculations with the last 30 years of data and says it actually is probably closer to about 5%. If you only draw down 4% every year, you're going to end up with way more money than you started with. So if you think about that 5% rule, essentially that means for every $1 million that you have invested in the stock market, you can withdraw $50,000 as income, and that's adjusted for inflation. So 1 million gives you 50,000. If you have 2 million invested, you have $100,000 a year for essentially your passive income. And if you're combining, like in my space, there's a lot of people who do some real estate and some investing. It's kind of a mix of both. And so how I run those numbers is after your cash flow, let's say your expenses are 5,000 a month and you've got 3,000 in cash flow, so your investments need to cover that other 2,000. And you can kind of just adjust those accordingly, whatever that percentage is.
Based on today's lifestyle and a medium income group or a family of four, what is the today's big number? If I was to start today, what is the number that I should be aiming for before I even start doing the 4% rule?
I would look at how much are you actually spending.
Yeah, well, let's say average families, so they got a home mortgage. I think that's going to run about three, $4,000. So I'm expecting, and then healthcare, that's another $2,000. So approximately, I think $10,000 is,
It's
or
so
am I on the higher end? I don't know.
It
I'm
depends.
just
It's so
guessing.
individual. So if you're used to spending $10,000 a month, like that's probably what you should aim for, unless you can find ways to reduce that are palatable for you. Because there is that trade-off. Would I rather have more luxury in my life, or would I rather have more freedom? And you might say, I love our house with a $4,000 mortgage, but if I had to pick between working 60 hours a week in this lovely house, or being financially independent and entirely in control of my time and living in a very modest house, like that's a choice that only you can make for yourself and what works for your family in that moment. So I know a lot of people who spend $10,000 a month. I have a friend who spends $1 million a year, and I know people who spend 2,500, $3,000 a month. Like it's really about what makes sense in your city, in your family, in your needs. And I would never prescribe, here's the ideal monthly income for you, because there's so many variables. Like I have 5 kids, but I don't have any student loans and I don't have a car loan and I have a really low mortgage payment. So my expenses are going to look different than someone else's.
So, in the essence of financial freedom, like the investors on my side of the world, essentially they never stop working, so they're just looking for growth. So they switch, the audiences, usually they will switch jobs and they will trade that job for the investment cycle. And they are then growing their investment business. Now, but you talk about retirement. Retirement to me is, so vacation is different than retirement, right? So vacation, you take a week off, you go to Cancun or whatever, and maybe 2 weeks off, and you spend that time, and you have a set budget, and you come back. But retirement, too, and I was reading your book, is a longer duration of time where you're not working and things of that nature. So, how does retirement and working the financial freedom piece they kind of align together? Because retirement to me is an expense where it's not only the expense, but you're also not generating any new income. You're missing on opportunities. I mean, you will have the investments that will produce for you, but it will not generate, you're going to miss on the new opportunities that you might have generated while you were working, right?
It's taking this idea of a traditional retirement where you might work 40 years straight and then you might retire for 20 or 30 years. And what if we just change that model? And what if we take these mini retirements, which I define as a month or longer, so it might be 3 months or 6 months, stepping away from your primary career to focus on something that matters to you? And what if we break this traditional retirement down? Let's say you're like, I'm planning on a 30-year retirement. What if you planned on a 20-year retirement and you took those other 10 years and you broke them into little pieces and sprinkled them through all throughout your life, so you could get all of the benefits of that idea of retirement, but in these really small doses, in perhaps seasons of life that will otherwise pass you by if you wait till you're 60 or 70. When your kids are like all in grade school and they're all itsy bitsy and they want to travel with you all the time and you're like their very best friend, that's a short season of life. And if you wait till you're 65, you missed it. You can't go back now that you're in regular retirement. So you are putting a pause maybe on new opportunities or work. But for a lot of people, that creates a dynamic of maybe they wanted to retire at 60, but let's say you took 10 of these mini retirements and you've done a lot of the things on your bucket list and you had all this time with the people you love and you built friendships and you had hobbies and you had adventures during 10 mini retirements. Well, at 60, you're like, actually, I feel really great. I really love my work. Maybe I'll just sprinkle in more mini retirements. Like maybe I'll take one every year from 60 to 70. And so you can extend that work life in a way that you get the best of both worlds. You get work that's interesting and meaningful and uses your skill set and connects you with other people, but you get all the benefits of retirement, of like being able to travel with your spouse and have time with your adult kids and your grandkids and have hobbies and start playing pickleball and all of that good stuff.
But does mini retirement work for the people who are financially independent? How about the people who are still working a day job? They're still working for their financial freedom. They haven't achieved it yet.
And the great thing about a mini retirement is it doesn't have to be expensive. And it doesn't have to be so logistically challenging. Quitting your job forever is very challenging. But negotiating, so there's three ways you can go about it. You can negotiate a month off from your employer, which even if your company doesn't have that program, I have like a whole section of the book of like how to have these conversations, how to negotiate this, how to send the emails, how to explain it in probably, very specific detail. But you can negotiate off from your current employer. You can plan a break in between jobs. So, especially for people who are starting out, your best chance at a raise and a promotion is probably when you switch employers. And it might make good sense to switch employers every 3 to 5 years. What if you just plan to take a mini retirement in between each one? Or the third way people get mini retirements is typically something bad happens in life, and all of a sudden, you're not going to work on Monday. And it's like a surprise mini retirement. And so if you're prepared for that, you can transition mentally and logistically into this meaningful thing versus like, I'm really bummed and I'm going to sit on the couch and eat Funyuns and watch Netflix because I'm really mad that I'm not going to work on Monday.
Yeah, no, absolutely. While I was going through your book, I think you talk about two different plans of mini retirement, right? Where it kind of costs the same plan A and plan B. So you want to expand on that?
Which part in specific? I'm trying to think of plan
That's
A
a
and
good
plan
one.
B.
I have to find that chapter. Let me,
Oh, the sequence of events.
yeah, sequence of
Yeah.
events. Yeah.
Yeah. So that idea is, let's say hypothetically you were going to take 20 mini retirements, each of them having a different cost. Um, which one should you start with? Like, and I in the book I give a few different filters of how to pick your next one. And the idea is if you're earlier in your financial journey, if you're just starting out, why not front load all of the affordable mini retirements and save the expensive ones for for your 60s or 70s? Like if you want to do an around the world cruise that's like 40 grand, you can totally do that when you're 70. You don't need to do that at 27 because it'll make a big difference in your financial trajectory. And it ends up working out well in kind of this season of life because maybe in your 20s and 30s, You want to do a road trip. You want to go camping. You want to spend time with your parents' house. Like you want to sleep in youth hostels. And when you're 50s and 60s, you're like, three-star hotels, please. Sound much more comfortable than a youth hostel. So you kind of front load those affordable ones when you're also younger and earlier in your financial journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another part to it is the compounding, right? So the
Yeah.
money saved today, if you are invested, whether it's real estate or stocks or whatsoever, the compounding of that is going to give you a better, bigger number for the future years. Whereas if you spend it today, you have lesser to save, and that compounding kind of reduces that final number. Plus the benefits of age, right? When
Yeah.
you're young, you can take those hard vacations.
Yeah.
So hiking and camping and stuff like that. Absolutely. While I was again going through your book, I read about how these mini retirements financially.
Hmm.
Help financially. Let's talk about that because people usually think retirement as expense, but you're talking about how it can actually, on the contrary, help you on the financial side. Break it down, please.
Yeah, there's a number of different ways that this happens, and I think about different levers. And it's not that every single one of these will happen every mini retirement, but if you do a mini retirement and you kind of lean into these possibilities, they might happen. Being a lot of the people in your audience like real estate investing, we took too many retirements that we bought real estate. And I think for a lot of people, I had read real estate books, I was really interested in it, I had done a lot of research, but we were in the throes of parenting and we were working, and I don't know how I would have done that while working full time. Like just my capacity might not have been there. And one of them, my husband at the time took 6 months off and we bought our first house and renovated it. And because he was off, we were able to buy a real fixer upper because he had time to renovate it. But because we did that, then we had enough cash left over to buy our first rental property. And, the value of those two houses, and of course, this was like 13, 14 years ago. So the value of those two houses has gone up hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point. Versus, yeah, he took 6 months off. He would have been making maybe 2,000 a month. Like the economy, especially at that time around here, you made like $12 an hour. So we gave up what, 12,000 in exchange for hundreds of thousands. So it massively set us forward. And then 5 years later, we took another month off that he negotiated off from his employer to buy the house that I'm currently living in. And we did a cash out refi on our first one to pay cash for this house, but we took a month off to close on it. We renovated it, we got it ready, we got it rented, and then we went back to work. And yeah, we lost that 1 month worth of income, but there again, we've owned this house for like 10 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity gained because of that choice. So there's a lot of different factors. I know people who've started side hustles, who've done career changes, who've switched jobs and gotten significant raises or promotions. Like a lot of different things can happen when you give yourself the time and space to make things happen.
And the health benefit that brings, right? The mental awareness, that connection with the self-awareness. So all those things. So I personally took a mini vacation 2 years back, not a mini vacation, mini retirement. So took a month off to Ireland backpacking, and it was like 30 days. And you're absolutely right. I was totally recharged after that trip. It changed the perspective of doing things. So absolutely, I'm with you on this part that we should retire often.
Yeah.
And usually the retirement is a subject that, for right or for wrong, has been pushed out beyond 65 and now 67, I guess.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
some people are even delaying it until further, until like 70s because
Yeah.
they can't afford it.
They can't afford it, and our lifespan is different, and the economy is different. Like the economy's changing, and it doesn't make sense for us to cling to a thing that no longer exists. Like I have a lot of conversations.
And that's where I want to go next. So this kind of sounds good for the people who are on this journey, right? Who are on this fire journey or self-independence, and they are aware of their financials.
Yeah.
But what about the audience, or the people who are still working 9 to 5
Mhm.
and everything is around that 9 to 5 and they are still not on the journey and not even thinking about retirement. Can they, can those kind of people take mini retirements? Can they retire often?
Absolutely. And I would say it's actually probably more important because if you're building financial freedom, you're building freedom in that. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you have fewer options and fewer safety nets. I've been having a lot of conversations around AI and how much it's coming into businesses and changing the workforce. And the reality is machines are getting better at being machines. And if your work is very similar to the work a machine does, that's bad news bears. So as machines get better at being machines, humans need to get better at being human. We need to come back for mini retirements refreshed, creative, imaginative, with gumption, with motivation, because you can't just do data entry. You can't slog it through your job, burned out, exhausted, um, and punch in some numbers in a keyboard because machines are getting real good at doing that stuff for us. And so you have to get better at being human. And the reality is if you're 22 and you've done 4 years of college, the likelihood of you going to work in a career and doing that exact same work for the next 40 years, it's probably not going to happen. You need to be able to, we need to rethink this model if you get all of your education up front and then you do 40 years of work because it's not going to work anymore. We need to have a system where you can step out of your career as it changes, as AI and technology reshape it, and reimagine what you're going to do, reimagine your work, reimagine your career, get additional training. And a mini retirement is the perfect tool to be continually relevant and needed and necessary because you're excelling at being human.
Absolutely. And you can take that mini retirement to reskill yourself to the advancements of the technology of this world or whatever interests you and what the new opportunities are.
Yeah.
Rather than being on the sliding scale, you can bump yourself towards the leading edge. So
Yeah.
you can make more dollars
Yeah.
and be better absorbed by the industry.
Yeah. And have more job security because your ability, a 22-year-old right now, their ability to predict what skills they need at 52, we have no idea. We have no idea what skills you're going to need in 30 years because of how the economy is changing, how jobs are changing. So you're going to have to reimagine this as you go and as you get new information to make sure that your skill set matches what the economy currently is demanding.
When you work with your clients, what's one financial or lifestyle mistake that you notice kind of in majority of your audiences?
Kind of like we talked about a little bit, that 4% rule dictating all of their life choices, which is one of the reasons I do this in between bucket and kind of a after work, like true retirement, old age bucket, as I call it.
Mhm.
Because if we put all of our mentally put all of our assets in one bucket, that bucket might say, no, you can't make a change. You can't switch jobs. You can't switch careers. You can't take a year off. So actually just last night, every Monday night I do a group coaching call for people who are about to take mini retirements. And someone asked, like, so how would I allot this? And I'm like, honestly, okay, let's say you're 40. If you have $2 million, I would put mentally 500,000 in your old age bucket, and I would put 1.5 in your in between bucket. And I would organize it that way because if you're 40 and let's say your investments adjusted for inflation double every 10 years, by the time you're 50, that'll be 1 million. By the time you're 60, that'll be 2 million. And if $100,000 is enough to pay all of your basic expenses and bills, like that's your FI number. Like that's good. And then you have this 1.5 million that you can pull at random intervals. You can pull at random percentages. You can use to buy real estate. You could use to start a business. You could use to, travel around the world. Like you could use 25% of it one year. You could use 1%. Like it doesn't matter because the goal is to use all of it. It's like a college fund. You put the money in there so that your kids go to college and spend it all, not so that they take 5% of this and do college indefinitely. No, you're going to spend it over the time, the 4 to 7 years you're in school. And the in between bucket is the same way. It's meant to be exhausted.
And it's interesting because we don't know how. I know we plan for the retirement, but we don't know. Nobody knows life, right? When we were born and when we die, we don't decide that. I think it's important to utilize some of that while you can enjoy it. So let's get on to the another segment of our podcast. Let's keep things fun and simple. So, what's your favorite book or something, a keynote that changed your mindset, your own mindset?
That's a tricky one. So when I was about 19, 20, I I learned that there were libraries. I mean, technically, I knew that they existed. I just never like had access to a real library. But I moved to DC, and I was like, "Oh, there's like libraries. This is amazing!" And so I started going every week and just walking the nonfiction section, like front to back, every aisle, grabbing books from like every shelf, and reading all the things. And I read at least a book a week for 20 plus years. So I've probably read about 1,000 nonfiction books now. And I love it. I love the medium. It's why I wrote a book. Like, I love the medium of books. I do believe they're so life changing. So that's a tough question because, like, best one out of 1,000 is a broad scope. But ones I've read this year that have been really interesting, I read a book called Attached. It's about like romantic relationship attachment style that was fascinating and gave me such a great framework and language. I had a bunch of my friends read it. I have a joke that like we're not a book club, so like we send each other like stuff we're reading. Sometimes we read the same book before we go on vacation together, so that like on vacation we can talk about these ideas and have that shared language and that shared framework because we're super geeky that way. But that one was really good and kind of an off recommendation. But something I really liked, another amazing framework, was a book on women's sexuality called "Come as You Are." Highly recommend, especially to any man who has a woman that he wants to have sex with in his life. You should read that book. It was fantastic.
All right, I need to go and check that out.
So good. Like, but it had a mental framework of that there's like gas pedals and brakes that are specific to each woman, and to like how to learn what those are and construct your life so that there's a lot of gas pedals and there's very few brakes. And I was like, I am forever using this language. I'm forever using this framework. This is how I'm thinking about it. This is how I'm talking about it. It was massively useful.
I want to tell you about my book, the book that I like. It's called Retire Often, written by Jillian. So it actually helped. So I have done some vacations, extended vacations before, and never knew it's called mini retirement,
Yeah.
and it helped. So far I have done three mini retirements. One was 6 months, the next one was 13 or 14 months, and then it was a month. So, and each one of them helped me mentally, emotionally, physically, but also, as you rightly said, financially. Because when you come back with different energy. You
Mhm.
come back with different ideas. You come back reskilled,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like a rebirth.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I guess my fourth one is due now. So I know you love traveling. So what's your favorite or dream destination?
Mm, yeah, so that's another tough question. I was lucky enough to live in Europe for 4 years, so I was able to travel around a bunch and saw about 27 different countries. The one that would be so relaxing to go back to would be Croatia. I loved the vibe there. I spent a couple weeks driving around Croatia. It's really lovely. One that I'm interested in going to that I haven't yet. Last year, I took a mini retirement. I took a month off to learn tango, and I'm obsessed. I love tango so much. So I would love to go to Argentina and study tango for a month or two, and live down there would be fantastic.
All righty. And what does bigger life mean to you?
To me, a bigger life is one that's aligned, where my goals, my values, my dreams are clearly evident in my daily calendar, in my yearly calendar, and how I'm spending my time and my energy and my finances, when I see those manifested, that to me feels about as big as I can make it.
Absolutely, that makes sense. If you have better clarity of your alignment of all the things, you can enjoy your life. And yeah, so this is another way of thinking about a bigger life. Thank you. Well, Jillian, this is such an inspiring and eye-opening conversation and mini retirement style conversation. Love that.
Mm.
I appreciate it. Thanks for joining. And for our listeners who want to connect with you and follow your work or get coaching from you, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, retireoften.com. You can find links to my book, group coaching, one on one coaching. I do some business consulting. I have a newsletter that's a little unhinged and some free resources there. So everything kind of lives at retireoften.com. And then on social media, I'm at Jillian Johnsrud.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining today for today's episode of Bigger Life Podcast. We'll be back another time next week with another awesome guest. And then, thank you. Take care. Bye.